Welcome to another episode of the Mussar HaTorah podcast, where we explore ethical and spiritual teachings in the weekly Parsha. I'm your host, and today we are diving into the profound lesson of our double Parsha, Acharei Kedoshim, and we're going to be doing that through the lens of Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, Zecher Levracha, and his inspiring work, Covenant and Conversation. Obviously, it'll be the volume on Sefer Vayikra. Acharei begins with the avoda of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, featuring the dramatic ritual of the two goats, one offered LaHashem and the other one sent away into the Midbar. Then we transition to Parshat Kedoshim, which opens with Hashem's command, Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael va'amarta alehem Kedoshim tihiyu ki kadosh Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Speak to all the community of Yisrael and say to them, be holy, because I, the Lord your God, am holy. This represents a profound shift. Suddenly, the focus moves from the Mishkan and the Kohanim to embrace the entire people and all aspects of life. What makes Parshat Kedoshim particularly remarkable is that it contains what Rabbi Sacks identifies as two great love commandments of the Torah. The first, va'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself, a principle Rabbi Akiva calls ze klal gadol b'Torah, the great principle of the Torah. The second is equally profound. It says, va'ahavta lo kamocha ki gerim hayisem be'eretz Mitzrayim ani Hashem Elokeichem. The stranger living among you, you must treat as native born. Love him as yourself, for you were strangers in Mitzrayim. Rabbi Sacks raises a fascinating question about these mitzvos. Why do they appear specifically here in a chapter focused on holiness? Additionally, why here in Vayikra, which is traditionally considered a sefer about rituals and priestly duties? He notes that nowhere else in the entire Tanakh are we commanded to love our neighbor, and only in one other place, Devarim Perek Yud Pasuk Yud Tes, are we commanded to love the stranger. While you're listening to this, you may be asking yourself, doesn't the Torah command us to love the stranger 36 different times? Rabbi Sacks clarifies that most of these commandments and commands actually focus on not oppressing the stranger and ensuring equal legal rights, which makes these mitzvos of mishpat rather than ahava. However, the deeper question remains, why are these revolutionary love commandments positioned among what appears to be a collection of unrelated laws? In the same chapter as va'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, we find instructions about not planting fields with mixed seeds, not wearing garments of mixed wool and linen, and not crossbreeding livestock. What exactly is the connection here? This brings us to Rabbi Sacks' profound insight about what he calls the priestly moral imagination. He suggests that to understand the ethic of holiness in Kedoshim, we need to recognize a fundamentally different framework than what we are accustomed to. In Rabbi Sacks' analysis, three great moral systems exist in Judaism. The Nevi'im taught social justice. The wisdom tradition, which is specifically referring to the body of Jewish literature and thought found in the Sfarim like Mishlei, Koheles, and Eov, as well as later philosophical works, that focuses on personal virtue and happiness. However, the priestly tradition, which we encounter in Kedoshim, centers on a different principle altogether, the recognition of Hashem's imprint on all creation. Unlike the Navi concerned with society or the wisdom figure seeking happiness, the priest views all of creation as Hashem's work. From this perspective, everything has its proper place, and maintaining those distinctions is sacred work. Sacred and profane, permitted and forbidden, these boundaries matter deeply. This priestly worldview helps explain why commands about loving your neighbor appear alongside rules about not mixing different kinds of animals, plants, or materials. These aren't random assortments of laws, but expressions of a coherent ethical system based on respecting the God-given order of creation. Rabbi Sacks explains that the seemingly odd prohibitions against mixing different species or materials aren't arbitrary ritual laws disconnected from ethics. Rather, they express reverence for the boundaries that Hashem established in creation. The Kohen's role is to preserve these distinctions and to teach them to others. Here's the truly revolutionary insight. The ethic of holiness culminates in the recognition that every human being is made in Hashem's image, B'Tselem Elokim. Hashem created each person with love. Therefore, if we truly seek to imitate Hashem, to be holy because Hashem is holy, we must extend that same love to everyone created in Hashem's image. This is why the love commands appear in Kedoshim. They are not isolated moral imperatives, but the pinnacle of the priestly moral imagination. When we love our neighbor and the stranger, we're recognizing the divine spark in every human being and honoring the Creator by honoring His creation. Rabbi Sacks makes a crucial distinction between the Torah's love commands and what we often call the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or in Hillel's formulation, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That is about reciprocity and justice. We follow these rules because it's in our mutual interest. On the other hand, va'ahavta l'reacha kamocha and va'ahavta es hager go far beyond reciprocal altruism. They call to us to recognize the inherent dignity and worth of every person, regardless of what we might receive in return. This isn't just about fair treatment, but about actively cherishing others as bearers of Hashem's image. The double parsha of Acharei, Mos, and Kedoshim reminds us that holiness is not an abstract concept, but a practical way of life. Through Rabbi Sacks' insights, we see how the seemingly disparate laws of Kedoshim form a coherent ethical vision that respects boundaries, acknowledges the divine order in creation, and extends love to all who bears Hashem's image. As we go through our week, let's carry this priestly moral imagination with us. Let's look for opportunities to recognize and honor the divine spark in everyone we meet. Let's remember that when we love our neighbor and the stranger, we are not just following commandments. We are participating in the sacred work of imitating Hashem. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Mussar HaTorah podcast. Until next time, may we all find the strength to pursue holiness in our daily lives. Have a good Shabbos.